Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Stephanie Broughton, and I am one of the MWBE coordinators with Dallas Independent School District. And I'd like to welcome you to join us this afternoon for the Dallas ISD's MWBE How to Avoid the Top 5 Mistakes on the Dallas ISD MWBE form. So we have a jam-packed session for you, scheduled for you this afternoon. And we are going to be covering a lot of information today. And I'm going to try to get through it within the 60 minutes that we have allotted for this particular event. So before we get started, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of all the different little tools that are available here on the Zoom platform. So there's a chat feature, and then there's also a Q&A feature. So anytime you have a question throughout this particular webinar, please feel free to drop that question in the chat or the Q&A box, depending on whichever one is more convenient for you. So I just want to make sure you guys can hear me, you guys can see me, and I also just want to check in and let's see if you guys can let me know that you are in the house or in the virtual house. So if you can just send me a message in the chat box, raise your hand, whatever you feel like, oh, the chat is okay, let me check on that. Thank you so much for letting me know about that. And let me see what I can do. Okay, let's see. Go ahead and check and let me know if the chat works. I see you guys are raising your hands. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. All right, I see the hellos coming through now. Thank you so much. And I see the virtual hands being raised. So you guys are just ready. You guys, you must have had your lunch, your caffeine. You guys are ready to roll. And I see those messages coming through now. Thank you guys so much. This is awesome. Awesome. So while you guys are doing that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, we have so much information, so much content to share with you guys this afternoon. And I want to make sure that we get through it. So without further ado, I also want to let you guys know about, so we talked about the chat, we talked about the Q&A, and then I also want to do a couple polls with you guys today, just to kind of see who we have here and ask you guys a couple questions. And the first thing I want to find out is this your first time attending one of the Dallas ISD's MWBE trainings? So just let me know if this is your first time, or if you've been attending our webinars for quite some time, or, you're a regular. So I see those responses coming through. You guys are doing an amazing job, and it looks like the bulk of you, this is your first time. Awesome. So I definitely want to welcome you to one of the Dallas ISD's MWBE trainings. We do offer free trainings monthly, and we have a variety of different topics, not only to help you do business with Dallas ISD, but also just help your business and help you grow as a professional. So thank you guys so much for participating in that. And so for those of you who said that you are a regular, thank you so much for your consistency and for supporting our programs and our webinars that we offer. Thank you guys so much for that. And I see some of you are still chiming in, so thank you so much for that. I'm going to go ahead and end this particular poll. We do have one additional poll later on towards the end of this particular webinar, but thank you guys so much for chiming in and letting me know who you are, and this is your first time. So it looks like 74% of you, this is your first time attending one of our webinars. So I'm so excited to have you guys here. And so 17% of you said, no, this is not my first time. And then I have some true fans here. So definitely, guys, continue to chime in and let us know that you're here. Also continue to attend our webinars. Thank you guys so much for being Dallas ISD's MWBE fans. And so we're going to continue on and talk a little bit about the MWBE Department. So the MWBE Department, our goal is to maximize the participation of minority-owned and women-owned businesses in a legal and meaningful way in all aspects of the district's purchasing and contracting opportunities. Now, our leadership is Mr. Leslie Williams, who is the Deputy Chief of Special Projects. We have Annie Holmes-Partee, who is the Director of the MWBE Department, and Mr. Wilton Munnings, who is the Bond Program Manager. Now, we have a host of amazing coordinators to assist you guys as you navigate through doing business with the district. And if you experience any issues that we can help, we are here to advocate and support all of you as you go through doing business with Dallas ISD, because we definitely want you to do business with Dallas ISD. And if you're currently doing business with Dallas ISD, just go ahead and let us know in the chat that you're currently doing business with Dallas ISD. And we want to thank you guys so much, because we know that you being here is a sign that you're either currently doing business with Dallas ISD or you're interested in doing business with Dallas ISD. And either way, we want you to know that we appreciate you and we thank you so much for that. So as you see on the screen, we have our list of coordinators, and I kind of want to explain to you, our department is set up. We have two different divisions. We have a goods and services division, which is the division that I'm on. And then we also have a construction, a bond program division, where we have coordinators on that side as well. And you can see the list of names here of the different coordinators that we have. So if you're wanting to do business on the goods and services side, then you can reach out to any one of us on that list under goods and services. And if you're on the construction side, you can definitely reach out to any of the coordinators that are on the construction side. We also have a surety support services representative here at the district, Tamika Sattler. She helps our vendors on the construction side with bonding and insurance. And we also have an amazing bond academy that we host, where we have construction related business owners who are either seeking bonding or they're seeking to increase their bonding capacity. And we have an amazing program that's 4 weeks. Tamika Sattler and SSP Consulting is partnered with us to bring that on. And that's such an amazing program. And please stay tuned for the next one. We actually just completed one of our sessions back in June. We also had an amazing construction bid preview back in June too. I'm not sure if any of you participated or attended that, but that was such an amazing event. And it was held at one of our amazing high schools, Pinkston High School. We also have Lamisha Chapo Cotton, who is Mr. Leslie Williams' executive assistant. So definitely take a look at that. And again, we are all available to assist you, even if you reach out to one of us and it's not necessarily the area that we work on, we are still available here to help you. And you can reach out to any of us for any further assistance. And so we're going to go ahead and go on and move on with the rest of today's event. Now, what I want to do is talk to you guys about the MWBE forms and how important they are to doing business with Dallas ISD. And now we want to go ahead and talk about some of the MWBE forms misconceptions. Some of the misconceptions with the MWBE forms is, I'm not a minority or a woman, so why do I have to fill out the forms? The Dallas ISD MWBE forms are actually a part of every solicitation that the district puts out, no matter what the contract type is, no matter if it's a goods and services contract, if it's a construction contract, the MWBE forms are an essential part of the procurement process here at Dallas Independent School District. So it doesn't matter if you're a minority, if you're not a minority, if you're a woman, or if you're a man, it doesn't matter. The MWBE forms are an essential part of the procurement process. And some people say, well, I'm a minority, but I'm not certified. So why do I have to fill out the forms? It doesn't matter if you're certified, if you're not a minority or a minority, the forms are still an essential part of the process. And we encourage all of you to complete the forms. In fact, prior to the recent changes over the last couple of years, if you did not complete the MWBE forms, your entire bid was thrown out. That policy has since changed because there were so many people not really completing the form. So we tried to make sure that we changed that to accommodate our vendors, because we want you to do business with us. And then some people said, well, you know, I don't have subcontractors, so why should I fill out the forms? The MWBE forms are not just simply for subcontractor utilization. Again, it's an essential part of the procurement process. And we're going to go over the forms in great detail during this webinar. And again, I hope you guys get a wealth of information out of this and continue to ask your questions and let us know if you have any concerns or if there's something we can do differently for the forms that can assist you to make it flow a little bit better for you. And then some of the other misconceptions is I'm a minority and or a woman, so why do I need to fill out the forms? The forms, although they say minority women business enterprise, it's not specifically designed just for minorities and women, it's for everyone. So everyone should fill out the MWBE forms. And some people say, well, it's not really going to make a difference. It really does. The MWBE forms are worth up to 20 points. So the district operates on an evaluation scale of 100 points. And out of the 100 points, the MWBE forms are worth up to 20 points. And we're definitely going to talk more in detail about that later on throughout this particular webinar. And then some people say, well, I just didn't think I needed to complete the forms. It is definitely a part of the packet. And it indicates on there, to complete the form. So it definitely needs to be completed to further assist you as you go through the evaluation process and as you try to become an awarded vendor with the district. And then some people say, well, my company is a partnership, it's a government entity, or it's a nonprofit organization. Now, all of those different types of business entities can do business with the district. We are not restrictive or whatever type of business legal structure that you have, because that's all those are. Those are just business legal structures that you have deemed for your business. But we do business with all types of companies and corporations, LLCs, you name it. But the MWBE forms should still be completed despite your legal business structure. And then some say, well, my total contract amount is lower than $50,000. So if you submit a bid and it's lower than $50,000, and then they say, well, I didn't fill out the MWBE forms because my proposal amount was under $50,000. Typically, when you become an awarded vendor and you start doing business with the district, depending on what it is that you're doing, that amount would probably more than likely exceed the $50,000 because our contract amounts or our contract terms are 3 to 5 years. So that's why that information is extremely important. And then some people say, well, I just submitted a bid a couple months ago and I already submitted the form. So why do I have to submit them again? You have to submit the forms every single time you submit a proposal and respond to an RFP, a CSP, whatever you're responding to. Those forms should be completed and submitted each and every single time. So again, if you guys have any questions after this particular slide, please let me know, and then I will make sure that we get those questions answered. And I see that you guys are putting in information in the chat as well, and I will definitely make sure that I take a look at that and make sure I answer any questions that you guys have. And I see that you putting your business information in there, so that's really good. Please continue to do that. And now I want to talk about the MWBE goals that the district has in place. So the district has 2 different goals in place as it relates to MWBEs. We have 30% for goods and services and construction, and 35% for professional services like architects and hazmat. So sometimes when people hear professional services, they think about, professional development, tutoring, different things like that. But the district sees professional services as architects and hazmat and different things up under that particular umbrella as it relates to construction services. So I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Now, how do we achieve these goals? We achieve these goals by a district-wide spend with certified MWBE companies, as well as certified MWBE subcontractor utilization. So that means that the district, whatever they spend, they're saying they want 30% or 35% of whatever the district spends to go towards an MWBE in either area. We do not have set aside. So we do not have any type of contracting system where we set aside particular contracts or particular amounts to go towards an MWBE. We have aspirational goals, which are 30 and 35%, but we do not have set asides. So I want to make sure you guys understand that completely. So now we're going to get right into our forms. We actually have 3 different types of forms that we use for MWBE. We have a goods and services form, and we have 2 construction-related forms, one for CSP, which stands for competitive seal proposals, and also one for construction manager at risk, or CMAR. These are the 3 forms that the district uses within their proposals, but today we're probably going to only focus on 2, the goods and services form as well as the CSP form. Most of the forms ask the similar questions and will request similar information from vendors. However, the CMAR form, we're not going to focus on today. We're primarily going to focus on the goods and services form, and we're also going to touch a little bit on the CSP form as it relates to construction services. Now, I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and at some point, I'm going to turn my camera off because I want us to really focus on getting familiar with these forms and understanding what they look like and also where you can find them. So in order to find the forms for MWBE, you want to go to dallasisd.org/MWBE forms. And I'm going to put that in the chat box. So again, don't forget, you want to go to dallasisd.org/MWBE forms. And when you go to MWBE forms, this is the page that you'll go to. As you can see, we have a bunch of fillable forms for your convenience. So as you're filling out the forms for your response to a solicitation, you want to make sure you take advantage of the fillable MWBE forms. Here is where you'll see the goods and services form. And then below that, you'll see the CSP form. And the top form is your CMAR form. So when you click on any of those links, you will go to where the fillable forms are located. And that's where you want to go and make sure that you see all of the information that needs to be completed. So I'm going to briefly scan through the forms so you can see what they look like. And then later, we're going to actually go through and highlight the areas that are very important that need to be completed. And then again, we're going to count down the top 5 mistakes that we see as coordinators on the forms. So again, I'm just scanning through very quickly just so you guys can see. So the forms are typically between 13 and 14 pages. We've redesigned the forms a couple different times, and we're going to have a series here coming soon where we're going to update the forms. So if you have any recommendations or suggestions on what we can do to make the forms a little bit more user-friendly, please let us know. So the way we currently have the forms constructed, all of the instructions are listed in the back. So therefore, you can focus on the information that needs to be filled out. Now, if you need further assistance or further instructions, you can go to the back of the forms for those instructions. So this is the goods and services form. And now I'm just going to scan through the CSP forms. So these are the CSP forms. Again, these are construction related. So if you are in the construction industry, these are the forms that you will be completing for construction related opportunities. So as you can see, it's set up a little bit different. It has the orange in the front and it has the construction hat, just so you know that you are working with the construction related forms. And again, I'm going to go a little bit more detail a little bit later. I just want to make sure that we get through all of this information in the 60 minutes that we have allotted for this particular webinar. So these are all the fillable information that you'll need. And I know if this is your first time seeing these forms, or your first experience with responding to a solicitation, it can be overwhelming, but just know that it's not difficult. It's just a matter of answering questions related to your business. And this particular form is the CMAR form, the Construction Manager at Risk form. Again, as you can see, it has Construction Manager at Risk at the top. It has a little bit more further instructions here, and it has similar information in front, but some of the other information is a little bit different than some of our other forms. And so we're not going to focus on the CMAR forms today. As you can see, the CMAR forms has a part 2. It has also a checklist to further assist vendors with completing the form. So I'm going to go back to the goods and services form, and then I'm going to also jump back over to our presentation. So we're going to be moving around a lot today. So I hope you guys are ready to keep up with me. So now, one of the most important parts of working with the MWBE forms or completing the MWBE forms is actually understanding how do you get to the 20 points, right? How do you get these points? So this slide that we're going to go over now is going to talk a little bit more about how do you get to these points. So in section A, as you can see, the point allocation is 3 points. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I have up to 20 points, because you have to put in the work in order to get the points stated, because just because it says 3 points or 2 points or 5 points, that doesn't mean that you're going to get all of those points. So we need something from you in order for you to get these points. This particular slide, this information that you see here is actually listed on the MWBE forms. All of the forms have this information. Not only is the scoring criteria on the MWBE forms, but it's also located on the RFP document. And we're going to highlight that as well. So if you look in the section A, we're going to take a closer look at this section here, where we have 3 points. Now, it's saying that the prosperer demonstrated a commitment to the district's MWBE program by providing enhancements to the administration of the prosperous contracting process for the work to be done by MWBE forms. So we're asking that we want to see that you're supporting MWBEs at the highest level. We don't want you, if you're going to be utilizing subcontractors, we don't want you to just list subcontractors. We want to make sure that they're being treated fairly. So we want to see in great detail, not just I work with some minority and women-owned subcontractors. That's not sufficient information. We want you guys to put in some detailed information as it relates to what exactly is your company doing to ensure that the work that's done by MWBEs is great work, and you guys are working with them to the fullest. So some of the examples are expedited payments, men of Protege programs, early release of retainage, so on and so forth. So that's just a quick example. Also, if you look at section B, we have 2 MWBE subcontractor references on the MWBE forms. Now, this can get tricky for some people because procurement services also asks for references. So sometimes what happens is people fill out the references for the procurement services portion, but they don't fill out the references for the MWBE portion. Now, the references for the MWBE portion must be MWBEs. And again, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, because not only do they have to be MWBEs, but they have to be MWBEs that have worked for your company, not the other way around. Not a company that you've worked for, but an MWBE that has worked for your company. So that's the B section of it. And as you can see, that is worth 3 points. So far, we're up to what? 5 points, right? So now we're going to go to section C. Section C has a lot of ors in there. You see these ors here? And one of the things that fascinates me by the word or and the word and is they're very tiny words, but they can change the whole meaning and concept of anything, especially in contract language, right? So make sure you pay attention to those small words and or. And in this particular case, we got two ors. So the one is if you're a certified MWBE. So if you are familiar with that or unfamiliar with that, that's certification is done by a third-party entity. And a business owner who is 51%, at least 51% owned by a minority or a woman can become certified. Now, certification is primarily for those who have B2B. So it's not necessarily designed for B2C, business to consumer. It's primarily for business to business, and nonprofit organizations do not qualify to become certified. So definitely keep that in mind. But if you're bidding on work and you're a certified MWBE, you get 5 points. Now, again, remember we talked about paying attention to the small words or and. So the next one is if you submitted a joint venture with a certified MWBE, or you have a prime subcontractor teaming agreement with a certified MWBE. Again, the importance of the or here is you cannot get 15 points. So you can't get 5 points for certified MWBE, 5 points for joint venture, and 5 points for teaming agreement. You can only get 5 points for one of those things. So that's why the or is so important here. So next we want to talk about D, section D. And this is where you're talking about your subcontractors, your suppliers, your subconsultants. And we want to make sure that you have a diverse list of subcontractors and they're certified. You can only receive points if your subcontractors are certified. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail when I go through the forms as it relates to if you yourself are a certified MWBE. Are we still asking you to get MWBE subs? Yeah, we are actually, because that's the whole point of that particular section of a program is you want to make sure that you have additional certified MWBEs on your team in addition to you. Now, it may not always work out that way because you may be able to perform the work yourself. And we have something for that too. Again, we're going to go over that when we talk about the forms. And here's another word here, or that we want to pay attention to. So this is saying either you have subcontractors or you've demonstrated an outreach design to meet the MWBE project goals with a diverse MWBE team. Because sometimes vendors may say, you know, I wasn't able to find anyone to complete that particular work. Well, it's simple to say that, but we want to actually see what have you done to actually recruit a certified MWBE. We want to see that. We don't want you to just say, you know, I wasn't able to find anybody, so that's why I don't have any subcontractors. So that part is very important. And so D is also worth 5 points. So at this point, we're at our 20 points. And as you can see, you would have to do all of these things and all of these things completely and fully without, you know, missing any documentation or anything like that in order for you to get the full 20 points. So the purpose of this particular webinar is to make you aware of the forms, the scoring criteria, and how you can increase your score as it relates to MWBE. Now, this last section, we're talking about the framework and understanding the MWBE program, providing an MWBE compliance plan, designing or designating a high-ranking individual with knowledge as it relates to MWBE contract compliance. One of the other tasks that the MWBE department has is compliance, contract compliance. And some people are not aware of this with our department, but what we do is whenever there's a contract with the MWBE subcontractor, we monitor that contract to make sure that subcontractor is paid, make sure that that subcontractor is not being swapped out. So we do that as part of that. And so having an MWBE contact on your MWBE forms assists us as it relates to making sure we have a point of contact if there becomes a problem, if we have a question, if there's an issue between the subcontractor and the prime contractor. Now, it doesn't matter if the prime contractor is a minority as well. All of that doesn't matter, because we want to make sure that everybody is being treated fairly, everybody is being paid on time, and that's what we're here for. So again, as I stated earlier, we are here to advocate and support minority-owned and women-owned businesses, but we want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. So now, when I talked about the evaluation process as it relates to requests for proposals, I indicated that within the request for proposal, there is a section in there that talks about the evaluation and the points. So a lot of times this information is readily available, but sometimes you may not know where to find it or where to look for it, but it is most definitely readily available. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you guys an actual RFP and where you can find that information about the scoring. They actually, I mean, it's very impressive actually. So if you look here on your screen, you should see the final evaluation statement points. This again is on an actual RFP. So not only do they include information as it relates to the scoring criteria for MWBE, but also for procurement services. Now, this section here talks about procurement services and the point allocations that they have. So they're saying 40 points would go for the purchase price. Now, they're not even given points on 2 areas, and so we're not even going to talk about those. So the quality of the vendor's goods and services is 16 points, and then the extent to which the goods and services meet the district's needs is 24 points. Now, this is actually on an RFP. So if you got, and that's why we always highly encourage vendors to thoroughly read the RFP, because there is so much information, and I know it's a lot. I know it's almost like doing homework again, right? I mean, because a lot of times I have to read through these when I prepare for my trainings and prepare for my webinars, and it makes me feel like I'm back in school again, because I have like a ton of sticky notes and I'm highlighting things. So I know that it takes a lot of time to thoroughly read through it, but I guarantee you, if you thoroughly read through it, and I would recommend that you do it every time, because these things change. The RFP that you're currently looking at right now was not like this a year ago. Like, they make different tweaks for whatever reason, they make different changes. So it may or may not be the same. So just keep that in mind, because it seems like a lot of times once we get comfortable with something and we think, oh, I got this, I know this, that's when things change, right? I know they do for me. I don't know about you guys, but I know it happens like that to me. It seems like all the time. And so you want to make sure you definitely look at that. Now, since we're focusing on MWBE at this particular point, it's telling you right here in the document that MWBE participation is worth 20 points, broken down as follows. So you get this twice. You get this within the RFP, and you also get this on the MWBE forms. So you have the information readily available for you. And so as you can see, there's 3 points here, which we talked about earlier. There's 2 points here, which we also talked about earlier with the references. And then here's 5 points here. And then let's move on. Let me scroll down so we can see the other part of it. And what do you know? There's another 5 points there. Where did those 5 points come from? So as you can see, here's another 5 points here. So the points are just adding up, adding up. Oh, another 5 points. The points are just adding up. You guys see that? The points are just adding up. So As you can see, between the points that have been allocated on both the RFP and MWBE forms, you get a total of 100 points between the procurement services portion and the MWBE portion. That's a total of 100 points. So you may not be strong in one area, but if you're strong in another area, it can bring those points up. So sometimes you just have to think strategically about it. So don't say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. Just think about what you do have and how you can maximize that. So sometimes we just have to change the thought pattern about that, and then just make sure that, we do have something to offer. It may not be, the price might not be, favorable, or something else may not be favorable, but then pick up points somewhere else. Pick up points on the MWBE forms, right? So we got another online poll that I would love for you guys to participate in. At this time, I want to know who of you provide goods and services and who of you provide construction. So if you can let me know that. I see you guys are chiming in. You guys are quick. This is awesome. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for participating. Keep the responses coming in. I love seeing this. And while you guys are taking that poll, I am going to look to make sure I didn't miss any questions. It doesn't look, okay, some of you are responding in the chat. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. Okay, so while you guys are responding to the chat, I'm going to look and see if there are some questions that I can answer. So Julie wants to know, what if I'm bidding as a solo person? That's fine. Again, the legal structure does not matter. You could be a solopreneur, as we say, or a corporation, partnership, joint venture. It doesn't matter. The MWBE forms are still applicable. Okay, that's great, Melissa. So Melissa's saying, hey, we do goods and we do construction. That's great. So it really is going to depend on what you're responding to when you respond to an RFP. Okay. All right, and I see the responses are still coming in. It looks like 78% of you provide goods and services. So that's the bulk of our audience today, which is amazing. That's great. And 22% of you are construction related. And I know that there may be some of you that may do both. And we are excited about that. And thank you so much for joining us again. I want to definitely show my appreciation for you guys taking time to join us, because I know as business owners, you guys have a lot to do, and spending this 1 hour with us today proves that your business is very important to you, and you want to make sure that you grow your business through contracting opportunities. So I definitely don't want to take advantage of that, and I want to make sure that I provide you with exceptional information. So now we want to talk a little bit about supporting documentation. Supporting documentation is a huge part of where those points come into play, especially if you're bidding as a joint venture or you're bidding as a prime subcontractor team. The district actually has its own agreements in place for vendors to complete. So we discourage and probably won't even accept agreements that's been designed by your company or your attorneys. We ask that you utilize the Dallas ISD MWBE agreements for prime subcontractor on the construction side, as well as the joint venture agreements. And we also have a construction manager at risk team and agreement as well. Now, we do not have a pre-designed team and agreement on the goods and services side just yet. But on the construction side, we do have these forms already populated. And I'm going to show you guys these forms like I did with the MWBE forms. Let's give the screen a minute to switch over So right here is the construction and professional services prime subcontractor team and agreement. It's about 15 pages, and you would definitely need to fill it out and read thoroughly through it. And it also needs to be signed and notarized. I think that's also one of the things that sometimes vendors miss out on, is they may sign it but not have it notarized, or may not have all the parties on there. So you definitely want to make sure you have that in place. And then here is the construction manager at risk form or agreement. It's about 16 pages. So like I said, most of our forms run between 13, 16, 18 pages. I think we kind of like stand in that particular area between 13 and 18 pages. And so again, this is the construction manager at risk team and agreement. So again, it's set up very similar, some of the same languages in there. And there are certain things that the district definitely wants to make sure that's included in the agreement in order for us to approve it. So what happens is, if you submit an agreement and the district doesn't approve it, you don't get the points. Okay, so that can be one of the reasons why. And then also, here's the joint venture agreement. So this is the joint venture agreement that the district, this is the master agreement that the district would like the vendors to use. And you can see it's set up very similar. Now, this one, on the other hand, is 29 pages. So I guess I'm gonna have to back that up and say, instead of saying between 13 and 18 pages, now I have to increase that to between 13 and 29 pages. So I hope you guys didn't charge me too much for that, but between 13 and 29 pages. So this is that agreement. And again, I'm just scanning through here because our focal point for today is actually the MWBE form. So these are the different agreements that we do have in place again. And I just want to remind you guys that you can find all of this information on the Dallas ISD MWBE webpage, specifically the dallasisd.org MWBE forms page. So that's dallasisd.org/MWBE forms. And you can find all of this information out. And what I would recommend is, if you know in the near future, you're going to need, say, for instance, the joint venture form, go ahead and go pull that form up and start reading through it. You know, and that way, if you have any questions, you can ask those questions before you actually start approaching somebody to see if they want to do a joint venture with you, or to see if they want to do a team and agreement with you, because that way you can understand what's included on the forms before you start establishing these particular legal entities. So that's going to be very important for you to make sure that you have that established. So we're going to go back over to our presentation, but I wanted to make sure that you guys saw that. So on the forms, there are sections on there that ask you whether or not you're registering or completing this proposal as a joint venture agreement or as a teaming agreement. And if you select yes, there's an expectation that one of these forms or one of these agreements are going to be attached to your MWBE forms. These are some additional supporting documentation that we ask for. We ask for MWBE certification certificates, as well as affirmative action plan, equal opportunity, supplier diversity plan, Men of Protege program. Now, the Men of Protege program is not a program that the district has. We're asking you, if your company has a Men of Protege program, that you're helping a minority or a woman out with the program. So that's what that's about. And if you say, yes, we do have a Men of Protege program, then we want to see supporting documentation as it relates to that Men of Protege program. We want to see meeting minutes. Are they notarized? Are they signed? Are they up to date? These are the types of information we want to see as you add additional supporting documentation. Good faith effort, early release of retainage, expedited payments, diverse list of certified MWBE subcontractors, MWBE compliance. These are just some of the supporting documentation. And again, this is based on your responses. So based on your response and what you have to include is going to determine what we're going to be looking for within the packet. Now, I want to take a few minutes to explain to you the steps of the MWBE forms as it relates to evaluations. When you guys complete the packets, the whole RFP, CSP, whatever contract you're bidding for, once you complete that and you fill out the MWBE forms, what happens is the MWBE forms are generally separated and they're given to the MWBE department. So that's what I have here as step one. MWBE receives forms from the buyer. And this is on both sides of the house, on the construction side, as well as the goods and services side. So after the close date of the solicitation, the buyer provides the MWBE department with the MWBE forms to be evaluated. Now, again, we only receive, and typically we only evaluate the MWBE portion. We don't evaluate the other parts of the proposal. So a member of the MWBE team, typically one of the coordinators, evaluates the form for each respondent based on the information provided on the form. Okay, so that's step two. Step two is the evaluation process. And so after the MWBE, a representative from the MWBE department has evaluated the MWBE forms, we assign it a score. So out of that 20 points, what did your paperwork provide us with? Did you get 1 point, 2.5, 15, 18? What was your score? So based off of the information you provide and the responses that you provide is how we determine what your score is. We then provide that score to the buyer. We say we put together a packet and we provide that information to the buyer. Then once we do that, then the buyer takes the MWBE information and adds it with the other information. So do you guys remember when we went through that RFP and I showed you those numbers? Well, the top part of that was talking about I think it was like 45 points or something like that for price and different things like that. So then what they do is they add whatever points we provide to them to that score. So if you scored 50 points in the procurement part and 10 points in the MWBE part, you get 60 points. So the goal is to maximize your points wherever you can. So if you can maximize your points with MWBE by making small minor tweaks or just making sure that you respond or to submit the forms, that can help you. That can help you drastically. So you definitely want to make sure that you do that. And you want to make sure that you're consistent with it and that you are well aware of what's happening as it relates to you providing us with information. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is vendor-focused departments. There are a lot of departments within Dallas ISD. These are just the top 3 vendor-focused departments. So you have the iSupplier department, which is where you do the vendor registration. Then you have procurement services. Procurement services is where you would go, or where the RFPs, the CSPs, they're the ones who generate that. They too have 2 different sides of the house. They have the goods and services side, and they also have a construction side. And then you have us, the MWBE department. The reason why I wanted to highlight this is because we're all 3 separate departments. We're not all combined. We're all 3 separate departments, because a lot of times I know it feels like, you're like, I just talked to this person and I just told them this information. So why is it that you don't know this? Or why is it I put my information in the system, but you don't see it and you can't, so just trust me. I feel your pain. Just trust me. I understand where you're coming from. That's why I'm explaining this way, because we're separate departments. And sometimes, although we're under Dallas ISD, we may not know what the other person is doing, or what if you've had a conversation with them, we may not know. So it's not like we want to say, I just talked to this person, do you know this person? So it kind of reminds me, and I know I probably have some spades players on the line here, the card game Spades. And so I don't know, Spades just came to my mind, because if we do have some, and let me know in the chat box if we have some Spades players on the line, because what happens is, say for instance, you're playing partners, right, in the spade game, and you don't know, your partner has said their books or whatever, your partner has cards, you don't know what cards your partner have, your partner don't know what cards you have, but you know you have a common goal, and the common goal is to win the game, right, and not renege. So that's kind of one of the ways I can explain it, is that you have the same common goal, but you just don't know what's going on in each other's hands, you know. And then another example could be like, if you're from a city, right? Because I know a lot of people in Texas are not from Texas. And so you say, hey, you know, where are you from? And then they tell you where you're from. And then they say, do you know Stephanie Broughton? And you're like, well, no, I don't know Stephanie Broughton. You know, this is a big city or whatever. So just think about it that way. I just want you guys to know that it's not that as a district, we don't communicate with each other. It's just that we're all different departments. And sometimes I think people think that MWBE does vendor registrations and we do this and we do that. We don't. We train a lot on it. We help people on it, but that's not our area. But we're always willing to help. But I just wanted to let you guys know about that. So now we're going to talk about how to complete the MWBE forms. And I'm going to go through this quickly because I want to make sure we don't run out of time, because like I said, it's a lot of information, right? A whole lot of information. So this is the MWBE forms. Let's see. And my information is, for whatever reason, not coming up. So this is the form. And you have your bid number here, your total proposed price here. And let me do something really quick, because sometimes with PDF, it just doesn't want to cooperate. So we're going to just go through here and talk about the total proposed price here. And here in the middle, as you can see, is the company contact information. And so I just want you guys to take a look at that while I try to pull something up here. Okay. And so you see the company name, company tax ID, contact person. Now, this is very important because you should include the person who MWBE can contact about the MWBE form. And I think a lot of times people are just filling out the forms and they're just putting the same information across all the documents. But for the MWBE forms, make sure that you include information as it relates to what the person who we can contact for MWBE. Now, this section here, the minority or woman-owned business classification, is important, because a lot of people skip this because they say, well, you know what, I'm not certified, so I'm not going to answer that. Now, if you can see on the no portion, we're asking, hey, if no, indicate your ethnicity and gender below. We're asking you that right here. So even if you're not certified, it would help us so greatly if you put your ethnicity and gender there. It would help us so greatly. And I want to share with you why that would help us. Because once all the evaluation and everything is done and it goes to board and it's been deemed who's been awarded, a board document is created. And we only know like about your ethnicity and gender, and I'm going to clear this out, if you let us know. Okay, so that's going to be very important for you to let us know. And so this is a board document. I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. It tells you, you know, how many responses, how many were MWBE. But the part that I really want to share with you guys is the connection with the MWBE forms and the board document. And PDF is not acting friendly with me right now, so we'll come back to that. But this is a board document, and so let's go back over to our form. Now with this, then you have the signature block. This is where you would sign and date the form. Okay, give me just a second. Let me go back over to the presentation. Give me just a second. Okay, some of the other sections within the document has information that's being requested that we spoke briefly about earlier, and that is whether or not you have references, whether or not you have subcontractors. So all of that information is requested on the forms. So we're basically asking you to provide us with all of the information, as well as information for the teaming agreement, the joint venture agreement. All of that information is being requested on the MWBE forms. And we only know that information if you provide it to us. So make sure that when you provide that information, that you are as accurate as humanly possible. Okay, now I'm going to go back over here, and here's a form that's completed. Okay, and it looks like we're getting short of time. So I turn my camera off so we can focus on the form. And as you can see, all the information is filled out. Point accumulator, LLC, tax ID number, contact person, email address. And remember, we were talking about, even if you're not certified, please include your ethnicity and gender. That's going to be very important. Otherwise, it defaults to white male. And so you want to make sure you complete that, all this information. So remember, we talked about affirmative action plan, equal opportunity plan. This is where all that information is in section 1. Then here's the references. So the references is crucial too. And again, MWBE companies that have performed work for your company, not the other way around, not companies that you perform work for, but the other way around. So you want to keep that in mind, because some companies do not fill that part out right. So the prime subcontractor teaming agreement, that's where you would attach the end date and notarize the prime subcontractor agreement. Here's the joint venture agreement. So you're just going to say whether or not you have it or not, because you may not have all of this, and that's okay. That's okay if you don't have all of this. And so this is just for joint venture partner. So if you have a joint venture partner, you want to include that information. And this is where you want to talk about the subcontractor and prime self-performing participation. So if you are a certified MWBE prime, you can put your that you're going to be self-performing and put all your information here. And then if you have subcontractors, let me go over to my subcontractors. So this is my subcontractors information. So this is very important. So if you don't, so my subcontractor that don't count Inc. is a Hispanic female, and she is not certified. So I have a contract with her for $25,000 at 2.03%. And then Count Me In LLC is a certified MWBE, and the contract that I have with him is $175,000 at 14.22%. So where do you get the percentage from? On the form, I'm gonna go back over to the form. At the top where I have that price highlighted, that's how you get the percentage, right? So you can do the percentage, or you can just put the contract amount in, but it should be one or the other, and then we'll take care of the rest. So let me go back, let me see. So let me go back over to the other one. Okay. So we have the subcontractor, and I want to go back over to the subcontractor because I want to tell you that very important information when you're filling out the subcontractor information. So as you can see, we have 2 subcontractors. one for 25,000, one for 175,000. Then at the bottom, we have a total contract amount. These are for the subcontractors for 200,000 with a total percentage of 16.25. So if you submitted the forms and you sent this to us, we're going to take a look at it and we're going to do some research on it. Now, the coordinator has provided the information. This is for office use only on the forms for this. And then also the total MWBE contract amount. However, if you notice, the percentage MWBE put down is 14.22, and the percentage you gave was 16.25. Why is that? The reason that is because one of your subcontractors is not certified. That don't count Inc. is not certified. So we can't give you that 2.03% because she's not certified. Although she's a Hispanic female, she's not a certified Hispanic female. You could still utilize her services. You just can't get points for it. And I hope that makes sense. And I think I saw a question pop up. And I know that it is after 2 o'clock. So if you have to leave, I completely understand. I will continue on with the remainder of the presentation. But if you have to leave, I completely understand. The recording will be on our Facebook page. So if you go to at Dallas ISD MWBE, you can find the recording on our Facebook page. But I will go ahead and continue. So again, if you put down a non-certified MWBE, even though if they're a minority or woman, you will not receive points for that. Okay. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back over to the presentation. And I think we're ready for our countdown. So we're going to count down with the 5 most common mistakes that we see as coordinators on MWBE forms. Number 5, the MWBE references. This one is a tough one for us, especially if it's handwritten. If you handwrite this portion and you don't have the best handwriting, you might want to ask a friend. You might want to ask a friend and say, hey, do you have good handwriting? If you're going to handwrite it. Now, we prefer that you type the information in here, especially if we provide you a fillable form. Please type the information in here. But if you just can't, if you don't have good handwriting, ask a friend to write the information in for you. Because what happens is references have 48 hours to respond. We make 2 attempts. Now, if you put down an email address or phone number that we cannot read, that's going to be a problem. That means that we're either not going to contact the right person, or we're not going to contact anybody because we don't have the information. We don't have the appropriate information. So put an email address and a phone number down. And if you only have one, make sure that it's legible, because if it's not, you can lose a point. I mean, that's a simple point to lose, because all you have to do is just make sure that we can read it. So that's number 5. So now we're at number 4. So number 4 is the teaming agreement, JV agreement, mentor protege agreement. If you are bidding as a joint venture, if you're bidding as a teaming agreement, if you put that you have a mentor protege program, make sure the documents are signed, dated, and notarized. Make sure you have all of the supporting documentation that you will need in order to make sure that you maximize your points. Because if you sign it and don't notarize it, guess what? It doesn't count. You have to comply. You have to comply with all of it. You have to comply. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 3. Number 3 is the MWBE classification. It doesn't matter if you're not certified. If you're not, it doesn't matter if you're a minority, non-minority. It's so helpful to us if you provide your ethnicity and gender at the very least. Now, if you let us know that you're certified and you attach a copy of your certification, that is amazing. If you're not certified, that's fine. That's fine, because remember, in the beginning, we said the MWBE forms is for everybody. It doesn't matter if male, female, what your ethnicity is, it's for everybody. But providing us this information, it flows over into other documentation that we have, like the board doc. It just flows over into other documentation. But if we don't have the correct information, we can't convey that information. And when we do our quarterly report to see how the district is doing as it relates to our spend with minorities and women, we don't have accurate information, because any information that you provide us, we have to go based on what you provide, based on the certification information, based on the ethnicity and gender information that you submit. So make sure that you complete this. So I would say this is number 3. So number two, and this is probably the highest point that people lose for simple reasons. So say, for instance, you have all of this filled out. You got 5 subcontractors you got on your team. You're going to do self-performing as well, but you don't put no contract amount. You don't put no percentage. Now, you could do either or. You could put 5%, 10%, 15%, or you could put an actual contract amount. We need something. And if you guys think about it, what do we have to go off of if you don't include no contract amount and no percentage? How can we score that? So, that's why we ask for this information, because if you do not include it, we cannot score it. We can't. We don't have anything to score it off, because I already told you how we come up with the percentage number, right? We come up with the percentage number based off of your proposal amount. Now, if you don't have a proposal amount, but you have a percentage, you can include that percentage. However, whatever you put there, we're going to hold you to it. So don't just put something there just to fill out the forms and get awarded, because we're going to hold you to that number. So if you say 5%, you're going to give, what did I say? The Points Accumulator LLC was the name of the company I put on there. So if you're going to give Point Accumulator LLC 10% of your contract amount, we're going to make sure that you give Point Accumulator 10% of that contract amount, because that's what you put down. And the reason why we're so hard on that is because you could have potentially beat somebody out. You could have won over another contractor by providing that information. It gets points for that information. So we want to make sure you utilize that person or that company for what you said. And I hope that makes sense, because this is very crucial for so many different reasons, not just from a point perspective, but also from a compliance perspective. We want to make sure that you're putting down people that you're actually going to utilize, and we're going to hold you to that contract amount. So number 1, I wonder if you guys can guess what number 1 is. I want to see if somebody wants to guess what number 1 is. If you want to go ahead and put in the chat what you think number 1 is, based on the information that we provided to you, based on the information that you've been told, based on looking on the forms. Okay, that's a great, great. Maggie, Melissa, thank you. Valerie, awesome. You guys are chiming in. Oh, look at the fun. Okay. I'm loving these responses. You guys are awesome. Look at that. Oh my goodness. You got Isaac. Okay, thank you guys. Terry, Isaac, you guys are coming through. So the number 1 problem we see is no signature. So you guys are right. You guys are on it today. You guys are on it. No signatures, or simply do not submit the forms. Just don't submit the forms. This is the number 1 problem we see. They may fill out everything on the forms, but don't sign it. Don't sign it and date it. That is the number 1 issue we see. So for those of you who said no signature, you guys are right on it. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. You knew it. And also the notarization part too, Melissa. I mean, that's a great response too, as well as Marty. That's a great response too. A lot of the other documents that we have that require signature and notarization, they may be signed but not notarized. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that we provide this information to you guys, because there are so many intricate details that can be missed. And if you miss it, it can cause you points, and then you don't know why. You don't know why. So I want to go through, and also I know some of my colleagues are on the line as well, and hopefully they agree with my countdown. But if they don't, I would be kind of curious to see what their thoughts are as far as if I got number one right, or what the countdown is. But so I want to thank my colleagues also for being on the line today. And I want to make sure that I get all your questions answered again. We have so many different options for you guys as it relates to the forms, and we just want to make sure that you maximize your points. And so I want to make sure we get these questions answered. Let's see what we have in here. And again, I know that it's after the time, so if you have to leave, I completely understand that. And I just want to get to some of these questions. Jacqueline wants to know, what happens if you're owned by an entity and not a specific individual? Jackie, you may have to expand on that a little bit. I just want to make sure that I understand it before I respond to that particular question. So Jacqueline, if you can please explain your question about the entity, because as it relates to the MWBE forms, it doesn't matter what your legal company structure is, or even if you're a franchise or whatever the case may be, the MWBE forms will still be applicable. And if you're a corporation or something like that, and you where you may have, you know, a board or something to report to, then it would probably default to white male as it relates to ethnicity and gender. Okay, let's see. Okay, and I think what I'm gonna do,